Hello, and thank you for the interview. First of all, Heather, let's start talking about the agro-journalism training, which for what you are here today. What was that about, and how important was that for the journalists from Armenia and Georgia who were here?
Yeah, the agro-journalism course was a little bit about trying to inspire people more to write about this really exciting topic of agriculture, because it is a very important topic, because we all like to eat, and maybe some of us, some of the journalists, they don't really know that much about which topics to pick when they're talking about agricultural journalism. And it was interesting that we were talking about some of the common problems that we have in other parts of Europe that are also applicable here in Georgia. So it was to inspire them and to give them some knowledge behind their inspiration.
Our colleagues came from Armenia, so Georgia and Armenia are neighboring countries. How important is to cover the agricultural thematic in cross-border countries?
I think it's crucial to talk across borders, because pests, diseases don't recognize borders. And I think there's so much in common, and if you can improve the agricultural landscape across both borders, I think everybody will benefit from it. There's so much in common between you, but I think by speaking more and by collaborating with them, you can build better ties, and you open a little bit more your view of what's going on in agriculture.
There are many questions about how to cover the themes that are connected to village, to people in the village, and the problems there are. What are the main advices that you can give us, Georgian and Armenian journalists, from your experience?
I think you have to write your articles from their point of view. You have to use the farmer's lens. You have to step in his feet. How is he going to see this? How is he going to think about this? And that, I think, is one of the secrets to really good agricultural journalism, to understand what they're talking about, what they need. We speak your language, I think, fits that really well. I also think the timeliness. There's no point talking about what they do in winter just after they've finished it in spring, because by then they're fed up of that. So it has to be right at the right time. You have to know the agricultural calendar.
Yeah, the agricultural calendar is very important, and I want to ask again about the language that we speak. So in village, people speak a little bit different, and this is one of the biggest problem of journalists, that they are speaking too, with a too hard language, so that some people can't understand in regions. How big problem is this, and what should journalists do?
I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis, because if they really speak completely differently, you have to take what you say and you have to interpret it. Maybe you don't want to use perhaps their local words, but you can explain it in a way that they will understand it.
More simply.
Yes. I think you have, particularly if you talk first to a scientist, you cannot talk the scientist's language, you have to interpret what they say. But that said, I think it's always very important to go back then to your scientist and say, have I made any technical errors? Because one of the important things about agricultural journalism is that it's informational, so it has to be technically correct. It's not sensational.
Mm-hmm. Your last words were very interesting. So the next question is about the sexual journalism. So how important is that journalist who is working in the TV station or, I don't know, newspaper, to have a specific direction on what he or she is working, like agriculture, like economy, like politics, for example? How important is this?
I think you need to understand that all the sectors interact. So if you're working on a TV station, you may be needing to talk about the politics, agronomic politics, the social structure and how agriculture affects the social structure. So it affects all different areas. I think so some basic knowledge is crucial, whoever you are, whatever you are, to understand the underlying needs of this. I'll say it again, we all eat. We all have the environment, so everything is impacted by this.
So you have to have the general knowledge of all the spheres, and then you have to choose the specific direction on what you're going to work, yeah?
Yes.
But with the general knowledge.
With the general knowledge in the background, and then you make your decision.
Yes. And next...
I was just going to say, with the, for example, Charlotte Smith, one of our best agricultural journalists in the UK, she was a general journalist. She then was asked to report something on agriculture, and then she decided this was where she wanted to go, and this is where she specialised. And she is an inspiration, I think, for all journalists, whatever the nation, because she made this step, and she is so passionate about her agriculture.
Very good. And the next question in Georgia, and I think in other countries also, there is a very important thing that when you have several topics, for example, you have 5 different themes about agriculture, and you have your boss said that you need to make only one. So it's always difficult to choose the correct theme that you want to work on and which will be important at that moment. Is there any kind of, I don't know, advice is what you should follow at that moment?
I think the first thing you need to think about is the timeliness. The second thing you need to think about is how important is it to the farmer? If it is an imminent threat of, shall we say, a pest coming in from the north, and they need to be out spraying, well, that has to take precedence. I think also you have to take into account a little bit of the economics of it and the general interest that the farmers are going to take in that topic. So you have to think and classify it according to those criteria, I think.
Mm-hmm. And the last question is about, in general, agri-journalism. What is agri-journalism and for what?
Agricultural journalism is basically about agriculture. It covers from what's new to what's advisory, and it's an informative. It is not sensationalist. It is helping growers make ever more informed decisions about what they do. It's showing what is good. Sometimes it can be inspirational because you want to talk to some growers who are really making a good job of things. Because one of the things that growers always say when they hear of something, oh, but it won't work on my farm. So it's getting over that and showing people who have done it, people who are inspirational, people who are opinion leaders. And also, I think it's very important to be the bridge between the scientist and the farmer. The more that scientists and farmers get together, the closer the links, the better. And sometimes we need to be building a bridge between the consumer and the farmer, because ever more people are living in cities and it's widening the gap. And sometimes you need to educate the consumer about what the farmer is doing, because there are so many rumours and falsenesses, some of which we've talked about in this course.
For example, as you know, we are going to have this neighbourhood Agri-Guldi, which will consider not only journalists, but also the business, the government, the private sector, or the non-governmental organizations. So they will have one big table where they will all together sit and talk about the issues in agriculture and agro sector in general. What do you think? How important will this be?
I think this is one of the best steps that you could possibly make. I think that it's superb, because the more you talk, the more you bring together all the different sectors. No sector is an island. we all interact. So I think this is a very, very important work, and I think I congratulate you on organising it.
Okay, thank you so much for the interview, and it was a very big pleasure for me talking to you.
It's been a great pleasure to be back in Georgia, and I'm very interested in how the agro-journalism continues in Georgia. I think it's inspirational.